For 30 years, my brother was the golden child and I was the family disappointment. He was the successful one, the generous one, the son who could do no wrong. I was the difficult one, the ungrateful one, the daughter who never quite measured up. That was the story my family told, over and over, until everyone believed it, including me. What no one knew, what took me years to prove, was that the golden son who everyone praised for taking care of mom and dad had been quietly draining their savings and neglecting their care for years. And the difficult daughter that everyone dismissed was the only one actually paying attention. My name is Laura Vance. I'm 39 years old. And this is the story of how I spent my whole life being cast as the villain in my own family, and how I finally, calmly, showed everyone who the villain had been all along. Let me explain how a golden child is made, because it's important, and because if you grew up in a family like mine, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. My brother Marcus is 4 years older than me. And from the very beginning, as far back as I can remember, Marcus was the son the whole family orbited. He was charming, the way certain people are charming from birth. He knew how to make our parents feel proud, how to say the right thing, how to perform the role of the wonderful son so perfectly that the performance became indistinguishable, to everyone but me, from the real thing. Marcus got the good grades celebrated and his bad behavior excused. When Marcus broke something, it was an accident. When I broke something, it was carelessness. When Marcus succeeded, it was proof of his brilliance. When I succeeded, it was a surprise, or luck, or somehow not quite as impressive as it should have been. I don't tell you this for sympathy. I tell you because this is the machinery of a golden child and a scapegoat, and it is more common than anyone admits. In families like mine, the two roles are assigned early and enforced for life. The golden child can do no wrong, and so learns that consequences are for other people. The scapegoat can do no right, and so learns to watch, very carefully, because when you are the one who always gets blamed, you develop a survival skill that the golden child never needs. You learn to pay attention to what is actually happening, as opposed to the story everyone agrees to tell about it. I'll give you one memory, because it tells you everything. I was about 12. Marcus, 16, had taken our father's car without permission and put a long scrape down the side of it backing out of a friend's driveway. He was panicking when he got home, and I, 12 years old, still believing somewhere that I could earn my way into the family's good graces, told him I'd help. When our father saw the scrape, Marcus burst into tears and said it must have happened in a parking lot, that someone must have hit the car and driven off. How awful, how unfair. And then, in the middle of his own lie, he glanced at me. And our father followed his glance. And somehow, in a way I still cannot fully reconstruct, the conversation turned, within a minute, to whether I had been playing near the car. I hadn't touched the car. I didn't even have a license. But by the end of that evening, the family consensus had settled into a comfortable shape. The scrape was probably somehow Laura's fault. Laura was always so careless, and wasn't it sweet how upset Marcus had been on his father's behalf? I was grounded. Marcus was comforted. And I learned, at 12, the lesson that would define the next 30 years. In this family, what happened mattered far less than who was telling the story. So I started, very quietly, to keep track of what actually happened. Just for myself. Just so that somewhere, even if only in my own head, the real version existed. That skill is the only reason this story has the ending it has. I left home as soon as I could. I built a life at a careful distance, close enough to visit, far enough to breathe. I became a nurse, which my family treated as a modest, slightly disappointing career, the kind of thing the non-brilliant child does, while Marcus went into finance and was held up at every holiday as the family's great success. He drove the better car. He told the better stories. And he had, over the years, appointed himself the family's narrator-in-chief, the one who decided what was true, who was good, who was a problem. And the problem, reliably, was me. The thing about being a nurse, though, the thing my family never thought about, is that I spend my entire professional life watching for the signs of things that other people miss. Subtle changes. Patterns. The small details that, taken together, tell you that something is wrong long before it becomes obvious. I am trained to notice when a person is not being properly cared for. I am trained to notice when the story I'm being told does not match the evidence in front of me. I just never expected to need that training on my own family. My parents are Frank and Rosa. They are in their late 70s now, and a few years ago they began to decline, the ordinary, heartbreaking decline of age. Dad's memory started to slip. Mom's health grew fragile. And here is where Marcus performed his finest work, the role he'd been rehearsing his whole life. Marcus stepped forward, the devoted son, and announced that he would take care of everything. He lived closest to them. He would manage their finances, their care, their medical decisions. He would be, as he put it at a family dinner with tears in his eyes that I now understand were entirely for show, the one who steps up, the way family should. Everyone wept. Everyone praised him. The golden child, shouldering the burden, taking care of mom and dad. And me? I offered to help, and I was told, gently, but clearly, that Marcus had it handled, and that perhaps it would be best if I didn't complicate things, given my history of being difficult. I was managed out of my own parents' care by a brother performing devotion for an audience that had been primed for 30 years to believe him. So Marcus took control. He took over their accounts, their bills, their medical appointments, all of it. And for about 2 years, the family praised him constantly for his selfless devotion while I, the difficult daughter, was kept at arm's length, allowed to visit but not to participate, made to feel that my presence was a complication rather than a help. But I visited. And because I am a nurse, I saw things. I want to tell you about the first thing I saw, because it was small, and it was the thread that, when I finally pulled it, unraveled everything. It was about 2 years into Marcus's devotion. I was visiting my parents, a supervised visit, practically, with Marcus hovering, and I noticed that my mother's medications were wrong. Not dangerously wrong, not yet, but wrong in a way that only someone trained would catch. Pills that should have been refilled weeks ago, nearly empty. A prescription that had clearly not been picked up on schedule. Dosages that didn't match what her doctor would have ordered. To anyone else, it was nothing, a few pill bottles on a counter. To a nurse, it was a flashing red light. It meant that the person managing my mother's care was not actually managing it. The devoted son who had taken over everything was not, in fact, doing the one thing that mattered most. I mentioned it to Marcus, carefully, the way you'd raise a concern with a colleague. And his reaction told me everything. He did not say, "Oh no, let me fix that." He became defensive, then dismissive, then, and this was the tell, he made it about me. He said I was always looking for problems, that I couldn't stand that he was the one helping, that I was trying to undermine him because I'd always been jealous. He took my clinical observation about my mother's medication and turned it, in front of our parents, into evidence of my difficult, jealous nature. And our parents, trained for 30 years, sided with him. My father actually apologized to Marcus, on my behalf, for my behavior. I went home that night and I understood 2 things with perfect clarity. The first was that something was genuinely wrong with how my parents were being cared for. The second was that I would never be able to say so out loud, because the family had been conditioned to hear any criticism of Marcus from me as jealousy, as my difficult nature, as the scapegoat causing trouble. The very role I'd been forced into my whole life was now the perfect shield protecting Marcus from scrutiny. No one would believe the difficult daughter over the golden son. Not without proof so overwhelming that it could not be explained away. So I decided to get it. My mother used to tell me something, in the rare quiet moments when it was just the 2 of us, before the decline took the clearest parts of her. She'd say, "Lori, the truth is patient. It doesn't need you to shout. It just needs you to write it down and wait." I don't think she knew how completely I would one day need that. But I held on to it. The truth is patient. So I became patient too. Here is what I did, over the following year and a half. Quietly. Carefully. The way a scapegoat learns to do everything. First, I started documenting every visit. Not dramatically, just a nurse's habit, a private log. Each time I saw my parents, I wrote down what I observed. The state of their medications. The condition of the house. My father's confusion, and whether anyone was managing it. My mother's untreated symptoms. The unpaid bill notices I glimpsed on the counter, which made no sense, because Marcus controlled more than enough of their money to pay them. I dated everything. I was building, without quite admitting it to myself at first, a clinical record of neglect. Second, I got to know Yolanda. Yolanda was the part-time home aide that Marcus had hired, the cheapest one he could find, I would later learn, for far less than the amount he was billing our parents' accounts for care. Yolanda was kind, and underpaid, and worried. And because I treated her with respect, because I talked to her as a fellow caregiver rather than as the help, she began, slowly, to tell me things. That she'd been asking Marcus for supplies that never came. That she'd raised concerns about Dad's safety that he'd waved away. That she was only there a fraction of the hours the family believed she was, because that was all Marcus would pay for. Yolanda was watching the same thing I was watching, from the inside, and she was just as troubled by it, and just as powerless. Until we weren't powerless, because we had each other. I remember the afternoon Yolanda finally trusted me enough to say it plainly. We were in my parents' kitchen, my father dozing in the next room, and she'd been quiet and tense the whole visit. I asked her, gently, if she was all right. And she put down the dish she was drying, and she looked at me, and she said, very low, Miss Laura, I have to tell you something, and I am afraid I will lose this job for it. But your father almost fell last week, in the bathroom, because there is no rail, and I have asked Mr. Marcus 3 times to put in a rail, and he tells me it is too expensive. Too expensive. And then I see him drive up in a new car. Her eyes filled. I am not supposed to say. He told me my hours depend on me not bothering the family with problems. But you are a nurse. You understand. I cannot keep them safe on the hours he pays me. I cannot. That was the moment I knew this was bigger than neglect by accident. A man who calls a safety rail too expensive while buying a car with the same money is not overwhelmed. He is stealing. And Yolanda, underpaid and frightened, had just become the bravest witness I would ever have. Third, and this was the part that took the most patience, I addressed the money. Because the medication and the care were the symptoms, but I had begun to suspect they pointed to something underneath. My parents were not wealthy, but they were comfortable. They had spent 50 years carefully saving. There was no reason, none, for bills to go unpaid or for the home aide to be rationed by the hour. Unless the money wasn't there anymore. I could not access my parents' accounts directly, Marcus had made very sure of that. But I am a patient woman, and patient women find the door that the arrogant leave unlocked. My father, in a lucid window one afternoon, mentioned almost in passing that he was confused about why the account statements stopped coming to the house. Marcus had redirected them, of course. But my father, old-fashioned, still had online access he'd never thought to mention to Marcus, set up years ago by a helpful bank teller, the login written in the back of an address book in a drawer Marcus never thought to check. My father, in that lucid window, and with my mother nodding beside him, asked me to help him look at the accounts, because Marcus says everything's fine but I worry. He asked me. I want to be clear about that, because consent matters to me, even when the people I'm protecting can no longer fully grant it. My parents asked their daughter, the nurse, to help them understand their own finances. What I found, sitting at their kitchen table while Marcus was at work, was the whole truth, laid bare in numbers. Over roughly 2.5 years, my brother had drained more than $90,000 from my parents' savings. Some of it was disguised, payments to vague entities, management fees, cash withdrawals. Some of it wasn't disguised at all, because Marcus had grown so confident that no one would ever check that he'd stopped bothering to hide it. There were charges that had nothing to do with my parents' care. A vacation. Car payments on a vehicle that wasn't theirs. Transfers to Marcus's personal accounts, regular as a salary. The golden son, the devoted caregiver praised by the entire family for his sacrifice, had been treating our parents' life savings as his personal account, while rationing their actual care to the cheapest possible minimum and pocketing the difference. He was being celebrated for impoverishing the people he was supposedly saving. I sat in that kitchen and I did not cry, though I wanted to. I felt, instead, the cold clarity I'd felt only a few times in my life. Because I finally had it. Not a feeling. Not the difficult daughter's jealous suspicion that no one would ever believe. Proof. Dated, documented, undeniable proof, the medication log, Yolanda's account, and now the financial records in my parents' own bank statements. The truth, finally, written down. My mother was right. The truth is patient. It had waited for me. Now, I want to tell you what I did next, because it would have been very easy to do it wrong. The easy thing, the satisfying thing, would have been to call Marcus and scream. To confront him, to call our relatives, to blow it all up in a fury of 30 years of accumulated grievance. But I understood something, sitting in that kitchen. If I came at Marcus the way the difficult daughter was expected to come at him, emotional, accusatory, dramatic, I would lose, even with the proof, because the family would see only what they had been trained to see, the jealous scapegoat attacking the golden son. The form of my accusation would discredit its content. I had to do the opposite of everything they expected from me. I had to be calm. I had to be precise. I had to let the documents speak, and stay so composed myself that there was nothing for them to dismiss. So I prepared. I organized everything, the medication log, the photographs of the house, Yolanda's written and dated account, and the financial records, every drained dollar traced and labeled, into something clear and undeniable. I consulted, quietly, with an attorney who specialized in elder financial abuse, who confirmed what I already knew, that what Marcus had done was not just immoral but criminal, and that my documentation was, in her words, remarkably thorough. And I made copies. Many copies. Because I had learned, long ago, that the truth survives only if you make sure it cannot be made to disappear. And then I chose my moment. My parents' 50th wedding anniversary. The whole family would be there, aunts, uncles, cousins, the entire audience that had spent 30 years applauding Marcus and dismissing me. I did not choose it for drama. I chose it because the people who needed to see the truth were the same people who had enabled the lie, and they were all, for once, in one room. And because my parents deserved to have the people who loved them understand what had actually been happening to them. The anniversary party was held at a restaurant Marcus had booked, paid for, I now knew, with our parents' money. Marcus gave a speech. Of course he did. He stood up, glass raised, and he spoke movingly about family, about sacrifice, about how grateful he was to be able to take care of mom and dad in their golden years. He looked at our parents with practiced tenderness. The room glowed at him. My aunt, beside me, dabbed her eyes and whispered, "He's such a good son." 30 years of programming, performing one last time before it all came apart. When he finished, and the applause faded, I stood up. I felt the room's attention shift to me with a familiar wariness. Here was Laura, the difficult one. What was she going to do? Couldn't she just let her brother have his moment? I saw Marcus's eyes narrow, just slightly. But I had spent my whole life being underestimated by this exact room, and I had finally learned to use it. I'd like to add to what Marcus said about taking care of mom and dad, I began, and my voice was calm, warm even. Because I think everyone here should understand exactly what that care has looked like. I did not raise my voice. Not once, in what followed. My mother was right, the truth doesn't need you to shout. I laid it out the way I'd organized it. I started with the medications, because I'm a nurse and that's where I'd started. I described, factually, what I had documented over 18 months, the missed refills, the rationed care, the homemade cut to a fraction of the hours the family believed. I saw a few faces begin to frown, confused, the first hairline crack in 30 years of certainty. Then I brought out Yolanda's statement, and I read it, Yolanda's own words, about being underpaid, undersupplied, and overruled, about her concerns for dad's safety being waved away. A statement from the one person who'd been inside the house, watching, the whole time. And then, when the room had begun to truly listen, I addressed the money. I did it carefully, factually, without theatrics. I said that my father had asked me to help him understand his own accounts, because he was worried. And I said what those accounts showed, that over 2.5 years, more than $90,000 had left my parents' savings, and where it had gone. The vacation. The car. The transfers. The vague fees. I did not editorialize. I did not need to. I simply laid the numbers on the table, in my parents' own bank statements, and let the room read them. I had printed enough copies. I passed them around, quietly, the way Marcus had once passed around the story of who I was. Now the room held the other story, the documented one, in their own hands. I watched my uncle's finger trace down a column of withdrawals. I watched my aunt read the line item for a vacation none of my parents had ever taken. I watched my father, in a moment of terrible clarity, look at the statement and then look at his son, and I will not describe my father's face, because some things are not mine to give away, but I will tell you it was the face of a man understanding that the child he trusted most had robbed him while the child he trusted least tried to warn him. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. I watched 30 years of a story collapse in real time. I watched my aunt's hand come down from her eyes. I watched my uncle turn slowly to look at Marcus. I watched the faces that had spent my entire life seeing me as the problem rearrange themselves, painfully, around a new and unbearable understanding. And I watched Marcus, the golden child, the narrator-in-chief, the son who could do no wrong, sit in his chair with the practiced tenderness draining from his face, replaced by something I had never once seen there in 43 years, fear. The specific fear of a man who has just realized that the audience he relied on his entire life has stopped watching the performance and started reading the script. "Laura," he said, and his voice had the old condescension in it, but cracked now, "you're twisting things, you've always been." "I haven't twisted anything, Marcus," I said gently. "These are Mom and Dad's bank statements. This is Yolanda's account of the care you paid her not to give. This is the medication log. I haven't said a single word that isn't documented. I've just done the one thing this family was always certain I was too difficult and too jealous to do." I looked around the room. I paid attention. Here is what happened after. Marcus's theft was, as my attorney had warned him it would be, a crime, elder financial abuse, on a clear and documented scale. With the evidence I'd assembled, the matter moved out of the family's hands and into the legal systems, and Marcus spent the following period facing consequences considerably more serious than a ruined reputation. He was removed, formally and permanently, from any control over our parents' finances and care. The remaining money was protected. And much of what he'd taken was recovered, because a man who steals $90,000 while confident no one is watching tends to leave a trail, and I had followed every inch of it. My parents' care became mine, and Yolanda's, done properly this time. Yolanda is now their full-time aide, paid fairly, supported fully. My father's medications are correct. My mother is comfortable. They are in the last chapter of their lives, and that chapter is, at last, a gentle one. My mother, in a lucid moment not long ago, took my hand and said, "You were always the one who saw, Lori. I'm sorry it took us so long to see you." I will keep that sentence for the rest of my life. It was worth more than the $90,000. It was worth more than the apology from anyone else. And the family. The aunts, the uncles, the cousins who'd spent 30 years casting me as the villain, most of them came to me, eventually, in ones and twos, with the awkward, halting apologies of people who have had to dismantle a story they'd believed their whole lives. I accepted those apologies, mostly. I am not interested in being the new narrator, in spending the rest of my life making them feel guilty the way they once made me feel small. But I will be honest with you, something between us is permanently changed. You cannot spend 30 years being told you are the problem and then fully trust the people who told you, even after they admit they were wrong. That is the real, lasting cost of being the scapegoat. Even your vindication arrives with grief attached. I want to leave you with the thing my mother told me, the thing that turned out to be the truest thing I know. The truth is patient. It does not need you to shout, or to rage, or to perform your hurt for an audience that has already decided not to believe you. It only needs you to write it down, and wait. For 30 years, my family handed me a role, the difficult one, the jealous one, the one who could not be trusted. And for 30 years, I let them, because I had no choice. But what they never understood is that the role they forced on me, the scapegoat, the one who is always watching for the next accusation, gave me the one skill that the golden child, in all his praised and protected glory, never had to develop. I learned to pay attention. And in the end, in a quiet room, with a folder of documents and a steady voice, attention beat performance. It always does, eventually. The performance just has to run long enough to forget it's being watched. My name is Laura Vance. They spent 30 years calling me the family disappointment. It turned out I was the only one paying attention. And the golden child never once imagined that the person he'd dismissed his whole life was the one quietly writing everything down. If this story meant something to you, stay a while. There are more like it here, stories about the people who get cast as the villain in families that needed someone to blame, and the calm, patient, perfectly documented moment the real story finally comes to light. No shouting. No cruelty. Just the truth, written down, waiting for its moment. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.